You are listening to Power Stance Gamers Podcast, the best place for quality tabletop banter. With your hosts, Jacob, Greg, and Muddy.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Power Stance Gamers Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight. On my left, I have my usual co-host here, David Muddy Mudderman,
Hey
otherwise
guys.
known as the Slan with the Plan. On the right, I have my other co-host, Greg,
What's up, fools?
otherwise known as the Elven Prince. You ain't gotta convince.
Ooh.
You know it.
And me, my name is Jacob Connor, and I'm your host. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight. We have a massive episode, and it's going to get emotional. We've got the tissues ready.
There's tissues here. I've got them prepped.
So, we're just prepared for every eventuality Greg might hazard across
I think
tonight.
he's going to
Tear
cry
up, yeah.
tonight. Yeah.
But before we do, we thought we'd do our usual whip around. And this one's a bit of a curveball question. And just a reminder, if you have a whip around question you would like us to answer, get in touch via social media. We'll get a list of them going and then, get audience participation. That's what kids want, isn't it?
Also happy to provide relationship advice for those out there that need it.
Yep. That's worked so well for people in the past, hasn't it? I'm just thinking right now of an example of someone you've given relationship advice to.
Chad, back at Blood Bowl, back at Uke Bowl, remember? We
Yep.
got in
Yep.
at 2 in the morning. And
3-4 hours worth of
So,
relationship advice.
2011.
Give him
I remember.
some solid advice there.
And me,
I remember trying to sleep,
yeah, me cracking it trying to get to sleep.
but he learned a lot that night.
He did. Yeah, he did.
Do you know what was funny?
Never
That was
asked
the night
for
Greg
relationship
learned.
advice.
That was the night Greg learned Chad's name was Clayton.
That
Yes.
spun me out, man.
Yeah, we heard
just
that
was
for about
totally-
an hour, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, as well.
Fucking memories. Anyway, so the question we've got this week is, what is a game you wish more people played? I'm going to throw this one to David.
Oh, look,
Money
this
first
is
of all.
easy. I'm going to smash this one out the park.
For a change.
Yep. Kings of War Historical. I said it.
Boom.
There
Yeah.
it is.
Wow.
Who doesn't want to see Romans fighting samurai?
Yeah, I'm
Who doesn't
down
want
with
to see that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be cool. I watched Last Samurai last night.
Oh, did you? There you go. See?
Yeah.
Now you can insert the testudo in there and have a bit
Is
of
that the
fun.
one where Tom Cruise kills the bird, then kills the bird's husband,
Yeah.
and then hooks up with the bird?
Yeah.
And she just wants to kill herself the whole time?
Yep.
Right. That's pretty much me during
Oh, that
most Tom
sounds a
Cruise
bit,
films.
sounds a bit sad, this movie.
Well, I would only watch out the corner
Are
of
you
my eye.
joking? Maybe not seen it. It's a classic.
No. Oh, let me guess.
Absolute classic.
Is this the last white guy?
Last,
in there?
Yeah.
Last Samurai.
Yeah,
as well,
right.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. American has to come and save Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
from
Exactly.
Americans in Japan.
But yeah, so like mine's Kings of War Historical, which is a new system. Obviously, it's only just kind of come out. I think Kings of War lends itself very well to historicals. I think please get some tournaments going for this. This would be great. Quick, and you get that whole historical feel without all the minutia, I suppose, of just lots of rules. It's not a historical reenactment. It's just pushing around some cool minis.
Yeah.
With a historical.
We had a game tonight before the recording session.
Yeah, and that was
And-
our first game.
First game.
I've been painting them for a while, because I don't want to have anything unpainted on the board. We had the Spartans and the Romans.
Yep.
And
I've already put a stack of photos up on social media.
yeah, cool. It was a cracker. Loved it, and especially at the end when I the Spartan Royal Guard took out your general.
That's
Slashed
it.
him up.
A valiant Roman sacrificing
He did.
himself.
He threw himself upon their blades, and it was a good game. Loved it.
Excellent.
So yeah, that's mine. Greg Star.
Yeah, cool. All right, so many systems, isn't there? It's such a tough question, I reckon. Completely selfishly, I would say Epic, but I'm not. I'm going to say Infinity is my...
Infinity.
Yeah.
You want
Oh.
more people to play
Yeah,
Infinity?
yeah, because you know why? Best game ever.
Best game
Best game ever.
ever.
That's
Yeah.
a big call.
Yeah, it's a big call,
That's
but
a huge
Wait up.
Putting
call.
out there.
Wait up. I thought
Needs more
I've
Infinity
got a
players.
box of tissues here for you. When we start speaking about another game, right? So, best
No.
game ever?
yeah, I would say, to date, I should
Yeah,
say.
okay.
To date, yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
All
'Cause
right.
you guys do like that. You do
And the
crack on
tagline
back.
is always your turn, and it is like
Yep.
it's just constant involvement with your opponent,
Yep.
and I think that's pretty wicked.
Yep. Oh, cool.
It's really good. I think
Kind of suits you too, because it's with the skirmisher scale, you can really put a lot more time into your miniatures terrain,
100%,
etc.
yeah. That's wicked.
That's it. That's the bullshit they sold me on when I started in
Yeah,
Unity.
10 minis.
You
Oh,
only need 10
You
minis.
need
10
10
minis.
models. Yeah, right.
I own 200 odd now.
Yeah, so you've essentially got a Skaven army at that point.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Jacob?
A game I wish people played more of is the Star Wars role-playing RPG from Fantasy
Oh,
Flight.
Oh, right.
Cool.
Okay.
I love it. It's such a fantastic system, and I think the reason I want more people to play it is because it's such a great gateway role-playing game.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like it's just so narrative-driven. You never feel. I mean, and I've run campaigns and I've played in campaigns. You never feel like you're working against the game master or the DM. It's like it's always a huge collaborative thing, and I think it can be a really great way to get some just hugely narrative-driven gaming on the tabletop. And I know it's not a sort of tabletop RPG.
So, like,
Where do you
can
draw the line
I
there, mate?
ask some dumb questions?
Of course you can.
Some of the role-playing games actually are now on boards, right?
Yep.
This is completely still up in the mentals rather than on the tabletop.
Yeah, well, I mean, we use sketched maps and tokens and stuff when we want to keep track of detail, but it's really not necessary. The way the system is designed, and I think it fits beautifully with the whole Star Wars aesthetic, is that it's kind of just it's not tracking every last detail down to the detail. Like it's more about telling the story of the heroes as they progress on their journey, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
it's not slowed down by lots of rule mechanics. It's
nah,
quite
absolutely
loose.
not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And the way the dice work, there's no numbers on the dice either. It's you succeed or you fail,
Yeah.
and it's you succeed and fail with successes, with advantages and disadvantages. So you might be trying to pick a lock, and you can succeed at that, but you roll up a disadvantage. So then you go, right, well, I might have picked a lock, but it's set off an alarm. So I've succeeded in what I'm doing, but something bad's happened. Or the other way around is, you might be looking for hacking a computer to do something, and you might fail that roll, but get some advantages. So you might go, well, I didn't find what I was looking for, but I found some clues that might help us down the track.
You
kind
found
of thing.
something else.
Yeah, so it's as I said, it's real narrative driven, and I've never felt oppositional with the GM. Well, maybe once or twice.
Is that because of the GM though, rather than
No, not
human
necessarily.
error
Like I
rather
think
than
it's just the
mechanics?
way that a scenario is sort of played
Okay.
out. But we've had some massive nights in that, and I've even had Greg, who's never
Yep.
played RPGs before.
So this is when you guys were playing before. This is when
Mm.
Brad. There's quite a few of you guys.
Yeah,
that were playing
Brad,
at the
Mike,
time.
JT,
Yeah,
Chad, all these
Yep.
guys.
And being very standoffish, very reluctant.
Because
to
you've
come
never
on.
done
Yeah,
a
not at
role-playing
all.
game before.
Absolutely. I would say one of my all-time favorite gaming moments was out of Star Wars RPG. Bloody amazing.
They're
So
pretty
much
hard
fun.
to get people to commit though, aren't they? Like role-playing in general,
Mm.
because they do tend to. It's like campaign games. They can go for a while.
Yeah, that's it. And because you want to tell a story,
Yep.
that's the tricky bit. If you can chunk your story up, which we kind of had success in our last campaign with by telling a story that went for 2 or 3 weeks rather than a whole month-long narrative, it kind of worked well.
Yep.
But yeah, it's tricky finding a balance there. All right, that was a bit of an interesting conversation. As I said, we'd love to get your questions for this whip around section. So if you're listening, you've got some great questions. We might put a little spot up on Facebook, something where people can post their questions for us. And of course, we'll give you a big shout out when it happens, and maybe some Power Stance Gamers merchandise down the track to the selected winners. If someone wants to buy merchandise for us, to give away, that'd be lovely. We might put that in the fundraiser program later on in the year. So I think what we need to do is jump straight into it, because as I said, this is a big topic, and it's something that's affected us quite profoundly as gamers. I would argue that's probably, in my history with gaming, this has been the biggest adjustment I've had to deal with. Just speaking for the other guys too, I think they might be the same. But I might give a bit of background, if that's alright with you guys, before we actually get into the discussion.
Go for it.
So what we're going to talk about tonight is the death of 8th edition Warhammer
Give us
Fantasy
tissues.
Battles. Alright, so we've already got some eyes welling up here
This episode is sponsored by
by Kleenex.
Kleenex.
Nice. Just like, no, I'm not even going to go there.
No, don't.
I'll just edit this bit out.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Warhammer Fantasy Battles, again, you got to have a bit of background here. So if you aren't a Warhammer player, or if you are a Warhammer player, this is a bit of background to give you an idea where we were. Warhammer was initially released in 1983, and essentially it was a skirmish game. So we're talking 32
years, because I did the same.
2 years.
Until it died.
Look at the note that's
Okay.
coming
Yep.
out.
1983 to 2015.
And it underwent revisions every so often until about 4/3 in 1992, and it began to look like the game we recognise with blocked up regiments and that sort of stuff
Okay.
and individual army books and things like that
Yep.
we'd kind of recognise with the more recent editions. It continued to be revised until 8th edition, and that was released in July 2010. So over its history, we had supplements released by Games Workshop, the company that put it out over the years, including probably the biggest one, Storm of Chaos, in 2004. And that was like a global campaign that people played games, reported results, and that affected the outcome of the Warhammer world.
But I don't think
essentially.
it actually did.
Yeah,
No, it
there's-
was supposed to, but
it
then
was
they never did.
supposed
They
to.
Yeah.
never followed up.
It was so one-sided that it never really
was
got
damn
around to what they
squid.
wanted. And other more recent supplements included Storm of Magic in July 2011,
Loved it.
and my personal favourite, Triumph and Treachery.
TNT for the win. Yeah,
November
those
in
two were
2013.
fantastic.
As
It's
well as
even better when you combine the two.
Storm of Magic and Triumph and
Yes.
Treachery. Yes, it does get a bit
It's a
fully
can be a
retarded.
bit slow, but yes.
But as a side note, the Triumph and Treachery pack that you've produced for Mantic is first class.
I will talk about that
Yeah.
down the track,
Yeah.
for sure.
It
for
is.
sure.
Really, really good job.
So all the while these revisions coming out, supplements, individual army books were released for different races to give them their own sort of unique identity in the Warhammer game. And that happened from early 1992 when the first one came out to May 2014, which the last one was Wood Elves. And after that, Games Workshop released their final set of supplements.
Can I just jump in there, Jacob? I just want to
Yep.
pick up one point that I found on the net. There's a total 12 books in total during that phase of 8th Ed, but critically there was a 10-month wait between the Empire and Warriors of Chaos.
That was the okay.
So there was 10 months where
There was-
Warhammer Fantasy players got nothing.
there was
Got
a 10.
nothing. Yeah.
The first army book was
Orcs and
Orcs and
Goblins.
Goblins.
Orcs and Goblins, but that had a 10-month wait as well.
That actually
After
came
eight-
out at the end of 7th before 8th dropped, didn't it?
It did. That's right.
When 8th first dropped, there was nearly a year without any
Yeah,
books.
that's
I
it
think
there.
the only thing that might have come out was maybe Storm of Magic. No army books.
Yeah, well, for
Yeah, in
army
that
books,
window from...
Yeah, that
Mm.
really.
And
hit
that
it
got a
hard.
lot of people offside because they felt that it was being neglected for other, probably more popular
I think it's an important
franchises. at
point.
the
Yeah.
The
time.
reason why I mentioned I think it's an important point that we'll talk about later, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to...
So August 2014, we see the last set of supplements released, and these supplements included also tie-ins with Black Library novels and big digital releases as well. And these were entitled The End of Times. Okay, and there were 5 books in total that came, starting with End Times Nagash, and then progressing through Glotkin, Kane, Thanquil, and the last one in March 2015 was the End Times Archaon. Archaon was the antagonist in the Storm of Chaos campaign back in 2004, and in 2015 he came back and essentially led in this final supplement that they released to the end of the world. It was essentially the end times for the Warhammer
They
fantasy
blew it up.
world. Literally, yeah, they blew up the world. The world was destroyed. And then, shockingly from that, which caught a lot of people off guard, is that Games Workshop in March 2015 announced they were discontinuing Warhammer Fantasy. So they've released this book, The End Times, and then they've gone, right, that's the end, fellas.
Although, can I just interject?
Of course you can.
They didn't technically say it was the end. They just left us in limbo because we were on the phone talking about it at the time.
Many a conversation.
There was Age of Sigmar was officially released in July 2015. So it was around March, April when the End Times when that book was released. So we had about 2 months of limbo, 2 or 3 months, where we just did not know what was going on until Age of Sigmar dropped, and we were like, right, that's the direction we're going in now.
And so Age of Sigmar is a complete redesign of
Correct. Yeah.
of the game.
Which is
So
skirmish level
Yeah.
fantasy, high fantasy setting, or
which
whatever
now has
way you want
points
to describe it.
apparently as well.
It's changed a lot since
Yeah,
we
so
played.
it's still going through some evolving
Well,
process.
And
as well.
it's going strong.
And look, we don't have to.
Well, it's
we
got a
won't
big
talk about that.
company supporting it. That's the biggest thing.
And we're going
out
to talk
there.
about that another time. I think
Mm.
we'll keep this on on the death of it, I think.
So what was left after essentially the death of 8th, if you will, in that sort of March 2015 time was a vacuum for a lot of players. And that's what we want to talk about tonight, is how that vacuum affected us, and it's put a big rift through the community, and it's fractured the community.
It's created this podcast.
Can I just jump in here? I think
This podcast episode.
I think it wasn't necessarily a death, I suppose. It was even before the announcement of that it was dead. People were already basically jumping ship. They were already trialing these skirmish games, especially when End Times was basically happening. Because with the End Times, it had a lot of rules and characters, stats, and everything else that just completely made the game
Farcical.
pretty much. Yeah, it wasn't becoming any fun.
Well, again, sorry to jump in, but it was mid 2013 that old Harry and Warseer came on and said things are happening, things are changing. He didn't say it was going to die, but the game's going to change as we know it.
For our listeners, who's Harry on Warseer?
Well, we don't know. That's the thing. He was.
What
he's
role
an
does he
internet
play in the
celebrity.
community?
He was a very accurate rumor monger.
He had inside knowledge.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, he was very
A mole.
spot on
A
with
mole.
very spot on
Yes.
with rumors.
Who's Jervis Johnson? Yeah.
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 Essentially, anything he said was gospel.
Yeah.
And he would know. This is a time in GW where it was a shut up shop. There was nothing coming out of them rumors wise. Like back in the day, we used to know what army book was going to be released, what was going to be in it, the changes 3 or 4 months out before it was even released. Whereas during this time, GW were sewn up
Yeah,
tight.
they did a good job there.
Yeah, so Harry was a really reliable source. So it was mid 2013 when he came out. So the thing that so we're talking about the death of it, right? The thing that got me was, yes, it's their IP. Yes, GW can do what they want with it. At the end of the day, it's their business. It's their game. At the end of the day, but we're talking about 32 years of history down the gurgler. I started in '87 at the 3rd edition, so before the box game itself. I was back in the sort of similar Rogue Trader days. Then took a bit of a break, came back to it in 7th, and then now 8th. So yes, it's their game, but to not inform the masses, your community, your support base, that this is the direction we're going and this is what's going to happen. I think from a business point of view,
it left a bad taste in your mouth.
It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I would go as far to say it's almost unethical. And why did I say that? I say that because my son got into it just towards the end, and I know
Tomb Kings as well.
Yeah, and I know we call it the End Times, and I know some people out there are probably laughing, going, "Well, it was called the End Times for a reason." But back in 2004, during Storm of Chaos, it was called the End Times. Archeon was touted back then. He was the
harbinger of the end of
exactly
days,
right.
yeah.
So the fact that he was coming in now, and the fact that we sort of knew there was a new rule set coming, because generally every 4 or 5 years there's new rule sets. So we're coming to that period where we're expecting it. We're expecting a change. We're expecting
We're actually getting
edition.
excited.
Yeah, we're thinking 9th edition is going to happen, and this was a way to gel it all together, and off we went. So to some of us it was a surprise. And going back to that on an ethical point, well, my son got into it and loved Tomb Kings, and I remember the gate that blew up the world, and Tomb Kings were one of the first to be rumoured to be discontinued. And I remember I was in the car with my missus, and we're driving somewhere, and she was like saying, "Oh, well, what's wrong? What's the problem?" I'm like, "Why so down?" I'm like, "Well, it just bloody destroyed Warhammer." And my young fella was in the back seat and goes, "What, Dad?" And I was like, "Well, they just..." I sort of like tried to sugarcoat it, but it was like, "Oh, well, they've changed the game." And he's like, "Oh, what did they change it to?" Because he had read the rule book, he'd read the Tomb Kings rule book. He was just about to he'd bought 60 skeletons, Tomb Guard, etc., and they just destroyed it. So ethically, I don't know. It's very sour, very sour.
Because obviously the company knows well in advance.
100%.
what
Then
it
you're
is
back in
that they're actually
2013.
doing. Yeah.
2013.
Yeah.
It was not even before that.
Yeah.
Yet they couldn't let us in this big secret and get us, let us buy into it. Instead, they just dropped it. Well, here you go. There you go. And by the way, here's some makeup rules for your existing army. So all that investment that you've made, there is just some makeup rules, which, they're not really work, but kind of work. But here you go. It kind of, it wasn't clever.
Alright, I think this is going to lead really nicely into how this affected me. If I can take the mic for a minute. I'd spent the better part of 2012 to 2015 trying to build up a wargaming tournament scene on the north side of Brisbane. And not just me, there was a couple of other blokes that were doing it, and we were doing quite a good job, I thought, and we had a really nice community going. And I think, we were getting events in our hall at Caboolture that we had just about have people playing outside.
Packed out. It was
packed out. And people were driving from Toowoomba, people driving from Ipswich, people driving from all over the country, from Southeast Queensland. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. To come and play in these events, and it was just such a great day. And bottom line, I don't think it was even the Warhammer that was getting people there. It was just a good chance to hang out with a couple of great blokes, and Warhammer was an excuse more than anything else. With similar interests,
Yep.
Have a bit of fun, have a laugh, have some beers, and just crack on with some good games. The thing that hit me really hard was when G-Dub announced that they were discontinuing or they'd bring out Age of Sigmar or whatever they were doing. And what we'd spent so long building just disappeared overnight. And I don't blame G-Dub for this. And I think what
Are you more sad at the community for letting something go?
Yeah. So I don't want to alienate anyone from the discussion. Don't get me wrong, I'm not pointing fingers at any one person, but I just think this idea that we went, oh, well, they're not making it anymore, may as well stop playing.
Okay, and we've talked about this before, and here's a question for you. Do you own an old gaming console?
Yes.
You do?
You're asking the wrong person this.
Do you still play those old games?
Mario 64, one of my favourite, most thrashed out games ever.
Okay, apart from Mario 64, because Mario 64 is brilliant, alright? Apart from that,
yep.
Any other old games you play?
I bought the Nintendo NES one, Legends of Zelda. You're asking the wrong dude this. I've still got my Game Boy with the original Pokemon
I put it in the same context and go, well, for people like my kids, I've got old consoles. It's Galar and Dust, right? And I know they're young, but I think gamers, tabletop gamers, put them in the same mold that if you have the old system compared to the new system, what are they going to gravitate towards? They're going to gravitate towards the new system.
I think if you get a really good online game, even if it's 20, 30 years old, or a computer game, you're still going to have a community around it that's sort of based on that sort of stuff. So if you enjoy playing it, you're going to find other people that also enjoy playing it.
I don't think
tabletop's hard.
I don't think it's necessarily that it's the death of 8th that everyone left. I think part of the problem is that during the end times, people were already leaving. And so they started picking up other games. That's, to me, the problem, that they've then got, like you guys, had already started playing Infinity at this point. So once it was official, okay, everyone had the sooks for a bit, but you already had another system on the go that you were already basically playing more than you were playing 8th anyway.
Yeah.
So you've just carried on playing this other new game.
Then I feel there was a lot of finger pointing at G-Dub, saying, oh, they've ruined the game for everyone, where I'm like, well, the rulebook's still there, the rules are still there, you still own your models, there's still the same bunch of guys that could be playing games. At what point do we as gamers go, you know what, we have the power here, we can choose what we play?
But then that was whenever 9th pretty much took over. 9th Age kind of stepped in and sort of tried to do that. Not taking your point away from you that you can still play 8th, but then okay, we talk about the computer game analogy there, and you're saying, well, it's not a great analogy, but then my point is, I'm using that as a point of reference because that's the only similar thing to tabletop gaming. But then, okay, FAQs. How, if we want to play, where's the FAQ now? I don't even know where, okay, you could probably find it on the net. Probably. I don't even know if you can. So there's that. Things like templates. My High Elf army is pretty much finished, as in all the slots are complete, right? But I've got Orc and Goblins and Dark Elves, which are, and I just got Chaos stuff. Now, there's parts of the Chaos stuff you can't buy. It just doesn't exist. Movement Trade, all that sort of stuff that G-Dub supported, gone forever. Yep. So,
but I mean, we're kidding ourselves if we think G-Dub is the only source of those things.
No, but then I think when it comes to models, we're all, at the end of the day, it's a collection, isn't it? We're all quite tactile. That's the reason, one of the reasons why we do this is because otherwise we'd just get a piece of MDF, write on it, this is a unit of 20 orcs, whatever, and off you go. We're quite tactile, quite a, it's a very much a aesthetic game.
Yep. So
if you can't get the models, and if they're not quite right, you're not gonna.
I can't get Tomb Guard.
You can't get Tomb Guard.
You can't get them. All the Tomb King stuff, you cannot get it.
So no one out there does Egyptian themed.
Yeah, but it doesn't. They're not going to fit the models that I've already got. So I've already got 40 with halberds. What if I want to go sword and board? I can't. I have to go source another completely different miniature than what I've already got throughout my army.
Should have got on when everyone flipped out and sold all their armies
Yeah, well,
in 2015.
I don't remember there being much of the Tomb King stuff that really went up.
I think another point is we talked about the tournament scene, and man, it was fantastic during it. It was best ever. It was really getting good bunch of blokes, really good to hang out, fun. It was good. If you try to emulate that now with trying to run an 8th edition, tournament, one of the reasons why we go to these tournaments is to play other people, play new people even. Whilst in 8th edition we weren't getting reams of new people through.
There's no growth.
You would get people coming. You would get new blood occasionally.
There's no growth.
There's no growth.
No.
It's just going to be the same old, and eventually,
with the same issue, like we were already ready for a new system because the system
there's so many patches.
It needed so many band-aids that
it had so many
needed
patches.
It needed a new system.
Swedish was broken. SCGT
We've done the
was
Swedish.
broken.
We've done the South Coast.
So these are all composition.
These are all
Yep.
systems that we're looking to
we'd
balance
already
again.
tried to, in a way, fix what was already an issue.
Yeah,
And
but again, you got to come back to the point that unlike other games that play, Warhammer Fantasy says so. Page 3 of the rulebook. This is not designed to be a competitive system, but we forced it into one.
Well, but then at what point do you go, okay, a fun game is still competitive. Muddy and me, you and me playing, that's still competitive. Like, you're not rocking up to lose. You're rocking up to win. In however small percentage, now that might be like that much, or it might be that much, but you're not rocking up to lose. I know your dice inevitably means that you do, or makes it harder for you.
Yeah.
But you don't rock up here to lose, or you don't rock up to my, and I don't rock up to your house to go,
No,
you know what, I'm going to rock up to lose. So,
that's not what I'm saying
in
at
that
all.
sense,
But I'm
it's-
saying if we're going, we've got to put all these band-aids on it to balance it, then of course we do, because it was never designed to be.
But then, whenever
yeah,
I've
but the
balance as we're
band-aids,
used
the
to.
band-aids were there to stop everyone basically turning up with 3 or 4 armies, and let's be
But
honest, that's all
yeah.
you would. The power players,
But
and
I'm-
every scene
and the
has them,
stupid
would
choices.
be turning up with the same stuff, and that's not fun
and
anymore.
the stupid choice, it was to stop people taking stupid choices.
But
Yeah.
then what? Okay, so other variants came out. Okay, so mass fantasy battles. There are other rule sets, but I personally think that everyone had already gone separate ways during the end times.
I just remember, and again, one of my most depressing moments in wargaming, it was that the 2015 premier event Q&K.
Yeah.
I ran. That was the last Warhammer tournament I ran, and we had
It was the last in Southeast Queensland.
it was about 40 players, I think.
Yeah.
About 40 players, and I personally went around to nearly every player that tournament. I said, hey, if I keep running these, you're going to keep showing up. People are going, nah, there's no point.
But then,
That hit me hard. As someone that worked hard to build a community, saying that there's no point to keep coming to these things because Games Workshop say we need to play Age of Sigmar now, like that. That sucked. That was really hard for me to cop. Because again, to me, it wasn't about the game. It was about the people we're playing with. It was about the time we're having. And, it was kind of hard to deal with. And I see all the points that you're coming up with. But, at what point, I just felt like people were giving all of their power to Games Workshop.
But then, do you not think also that, again, it's me personally, and I can't speak for the other gamers, for me personally, there was bitterness involved as well, because I'd forked out a lot of money for the hard case covers because I wanted the tactile, get the new Nagash book, get whatever book it was, get it home, read it, enjoy it. So for them to charge $100 or whatever, $150 for those hardback cases, you got them too, Muddy, and then for them to kill it a few months later and just go, are you joking me? So I've just forked out $600
For you to tell me that the
basically
game's
for
over.
something I can just throw in the bin now because I'm never gonna.
But so why would you throw it in the bin?
I don't. I
I've
never
still
do. I
got
learned a
mine.
long
And that's
time
the
and I
thing,
never throw
it's
anything away.
still got ink in it. It's not
Yeah,
like
I've
they
still got
changed
it.
to Age of Sigmar and
But-
all your books are invalid.
That's I'm saying that in a what's the word?
Figurative.
Figurative speech.
I get you.
yeah.
I get you. But and that's that thing. I feel like we just give so much power to these, to Games Workshop in this case, or to the developers to tell us how to play our game, how to enjoy our hobby, where it's our bloody hobby. if we want to play 8th Ed because we love 8th Ed and we want to play End Times and we want to do this stuff,
Well, look, you know what? Whenever you
then we do
text the other day and said let's have game 8th, I was like, yeah, I'll be up for it, 100%. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
So
Except
what was the first reaction I got?
too busy painting.
The first reaction I got was, who plays that anymore?
You said
Yeah.
that.
think that was John.
Might have been Jono.
Oh yeah.
He hasn't listened to the podcast, does he? Fucking
No,
Jono.
but he's
Well, he's a ninth age
he's
advocate,
ninth
so-
age.
Yeah.
Of course, he's going to say that.
And I've got to say, I've only played a couple of games of Ninth back in the early stages of its development, and I actually thought it was a better game. It was definitely a better game than even Eighth.
What's that? Sorry.
Ninth. It actually was better. Now,
Oh yeah.
now they've had 17,000 updates since then,
Yeah.
so I don't know necessarily how it plays now, but those games were actually better.
Because Ninth was taking that rule set and trying to balance it and bring some competitive
Yeah,
balance across
because
the
it was a cross
system.
team.
It's
The-
ETC,
The European Team
Yeah.
Championship,
which is
and the 8th edition, it was bringing the two worlds together and scrunching it together and making it a manageable system, essentially.
Yeah.
But look,
but it's still a band-aid system.
personally, still bitter towards GW. And at the end of the day, what you do, you vote with your feet. You know, they haven't got a lot of money out of me over the past, since what, 2013? 2014. 2015, what I'm talking about. That's whenever the last End Times book came out.
Yeah.
So, 2 years, they've got maybe $80 out of me. No, not even that. They've probably got about $50 out of me for that Sisters chick
Bit of paint, maybe.
and a bit of paint, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it. So, but in saying that, I think they're over the years they've proven themselves to be a really good company. Who knows the future? But for me, you should vote with your feet.
Can I ask another question then?
You've had a couple of good ones tonight, so we're going to allow it.
If GW came out tomorrow and said, "Hey guys, we're re-releasing a mass fantasy, a proper mass, ranks and flank game again," even though you guys are quite invested in Infinity and whatnot at the moment, would you jump on board, or would you be dubious?
I'd buy the rules, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Even though
I'd
the
be
rules
dubious.
aren't necessarily one of their strong points.
No, you see my collection of rule books?
Yeah, I know, but you'd probably poo-poo it.
Yeah.
Would you play it if it was
Look, if
poo-poo
it
the
come
rules?
out and it was 8th edition, that'd been fixed up and rebranded, yeah, I'd
You'd
play it.
Okay.
I'd play it.
Yeah,
Greg?
put in that context, I'd play it too. You'd be,
So
you
they
know,
still have you. They've still got you.
That's it. But then again, I've got 3 fully kitted out Games Workshop's Army.
Yeah,
I'm
so
never gonna
really
buy another
all
GW
you're,
mini.
you're losing a few dollars on the rule.
Again,
I get
yeah.
that,
Yeah,
but
look,
would you trust them enough?
no,
Yeah,
yeah,
so they get
that's-
into
Absolutely, my trust has never been broken.
Yep.
Like I certainly didn't feel betrayed by GW with this stuff, and I appreciate why people do.
Yep.
But it's their company, their IP. They've had this system for 32 years. 32? 32 years. They've released this thing called the End Time, saying that the end is coming. It wasn't a surprise to me when it did. And again, I still take the attitude that it's my game, I can play whatever I want. I didn't feel like they were cutting me off from
Well,
the game.
totally get what you're saying, but also, I guess, leading up to this, and we mentioned this, one of the points I mentioned earlier at the start, was the fact that there was a 10-month gap between 2 of the books. And then another reason why, again, I'm bitter, is because one of the points that is flagged that the game wasn't successful, or apparently wasn't making enough sales and all that sort of stuff. People weren't buying
Which
armies
started
and
this
stuff.
whole process.
Yeah,
in
which
the first
basically in the
place.
day, it's sales driven. They weren't selling enough product, so they killed it. And I get that. It's a smart business move. You have to do that. But the point I'm making here is the fact that there was a 10-month gap between army books. Whenever I got back into the game, back when in my mid-20s, there was all 40k, and it was probably 40k for about nearly 10 years. And only towards the back end of it did they start sort of pushing the books out. But that's because they already made the decision to kill it. So really, fantasy for 32 of those years, look, I'm guessing here, I'm sort of working out numbers in my head, but I would say probably for a decade, for 10 years out of those 32, they pretty much did nothing. We talked about innovation in another episode. They were not innovative at all. They just basically tweaked the rules, produced some new models, and here you go. And it was Band-Aid after Band-Aid after
Yeah,
Band-Aid.
but then this is the thing.
Though, because Games Workshop, while they're not a workshop of games, because they only realistically at that point made 2 games, compared to back in the 90s where they had a whole heap of them. They're a miniature company. They're not a rules company.
Yeah, but you know what? Going back to what this is all about, if they'd have listened, if they'd have opened up and talked to the community out there with the various forums, Bugman's Brewery, the Elven forums, and all the different forums out there, were screaming out to them, asking G-Dub for, if it's going to be a new rulebook, please G-Dub, do this. Please G-Dub, do this. For example, Dwarves, they wanted a Slayer army. Did we ever get it? We never got it. And just think, if you wanted, you would have got sales, you would have hit your target, it would have kept the game growing. So there's a point where they just shut up shop and just went, you know what, we know better as a business, and didn't listen to the community. And didn't listen to the community for years.
Yep. But flip side, they go, right, let's do something innovative, and people lose their friggin' minds. It's...
I'm not knocking it. This isn't about Age of Sigmar. I'm not knocking that. I'm not saying anything negative about Age of Sigmar. It's a completely separate game. It's completely...
But that's it.
It's different.
Do you think that it's viable that they could have kept Fantasy floating with a consistent release schedule and bring out Age of Sigmar as well?
If I'd been... I'm not a games designer. I'm not Mr. Innovation here sitting in the corner. If I was paid, pay me the money, and you would hope that you could. What's to say that you could find... because we already know that Space Marines alone outsell the entire Fantasy range for the last 2 years of its life. It's like one product line from 40k outsells the entire Fantasy range. Oh, no, I get that, yeah.
Can you support, like, making models, pushing out rules, paying people to design games for something that isn't selling, though?
Well, that's why they killed it, but my point is, they didn't do anything for 10 years. They were stagnant in the whole fantasy game.
Basically saying that they actually killed it
themselves.
themselves.
They killed, they're blaming us for not buying stuff. Well, you got to be innovative. I mean, you got to produce.
I don't understand though. I actually think you can run the 2 systems. I don't understand because Age of Sigmar, from the games we played, what 3 games when it first came out. Okay, it's a skirmish game. I don't understand. Like, there's a lot of talk already about with a lot of fantasy games, like to have a mass scale and a skirmish game. I don't understand. It's the same models except they've decided to change the bases, but apart from that there's no difference in the models. How much money does it... You could even have the rules just as digital if you're trying to save money. That's not going to cost you a cent.
Well, I think, and again, it depends on the scale. Like, if people aren't buying a product, there's no point supporting it.
Then why bring out Age of Sigmar?
People are buying that stuff, though.
But if you've already got Age of... Hear me out, right? You've got Age of Sigmar. So the models that you require, you already have.
Well, see, that's the problem. How does that work for Games Workshop? Why would they sell us a game where we don't need to buy models?
No, what I'm saying is, Age of Sigmar is using those models. It's not... if it brings out new models, that's fine. It's still using old models. So the models, half the models are already there. It's not costing them anything. They've rebranded Age of Sigmar, okay? Here's this game, the models are already there. Here's another rule system that you can use for the models that you're already using for Age of Sigmar. But it's not costing me anything.
But we've got that. We've got 8th Ed. We can still use 8th Ed rules.
Can you buy all the rule books still?
You can't buy any of the rulebooks anymore.
But we've got them. If we're sitting here saying that they took this off us...
I'm not fussed. In my point, I know, Greg, you're quite dirty at them and everything else. I moved to Kings. Now, the only thing that I get sad about is Kings don't do army books and things like that. That's what I actually miss more than anything.
The fluff.
The rules to 8th was the best edition, but I never got... I found lots of holes in the actual rules itself. And there's too many special rules that make rules issues come up. So, from rules mechanics wise, I think, let's be honest, Warhammer was pretty pass in some ways. But the story was the thing that kept driving. That's why I bought the books. I wanted to read the story. That's why I bought the army books. I could spend the night just flipping through the army book. I wasn't reading the rules. I was looking at the artwork and the story and whatnot.
Yep.
So to me, I've transitioned to another game system. I think the rules mechanics in this other system are 10 times better. I would play, but I just wish I had the story and the artwork to go with it, because I would actually be quite complete right now if Mantic were able to do that at this point, early days for them, they haven't done it. But that's the only part of the 8th edition demise that I miss, other than, as well, I should point out, the tournaments. And I wasn't big on the playing of the tournaments. Mine was just hanging out and actually being involved in the back door doing some of the stuff, helping you out.
Backdoor stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but and then going out afterwards, etc. That's the bit I miss. But in some ways, I don't know why that's still not necessarily occurring. I don't understand why you can't have a hall with 3 different game systems on at the same time. It'd be pretty much the same guys, and we could all still go out afterwards.
I mean, definitely that would be my long-term vision. And something that we really want to promote here at Power Stance is we want to get that community back up. We want to do what we can to sort of promote this inclusivity and the fact that we can get a hall full of dudes. And if it means we have to play 2 or 3 different systems, then fuck it, we'll play 2, 3 different systems. Well, we'll have them running concurrently, and then we can go from there. But
yeah, I'm all for the tournament. You brand it as a generic tournament, almost like a con. Say the Premier event already was having that. It was already having bolt action, 40k, fantasy, etc. I'll put it out to people. Are you just retired? Have you just rage quitted? You've just stopped, or have you moved on to another system?
Speaking of rage quit, did you see the YouTube clip of the dude who set fire to his
army?
army?
Yeah, I remember. But none of it was painted from memory. So.
Yeah, that's right as well. Yeah.
It was Dark Elves, wasn't it?
I have to say, on a personal note, it's probably the best thing that's ever happened from a gaming point of view. Apart from my son being, seeing him upset that Tomb Kings were destroyed and he can't get his skellies anymore. That pisses me off.
But he
quite
never
frankly.
got to experience having all your models taken.
Yeah, true too. But on a personal note, best thing ever, really. Like, we're in a good spot. Like, it used to be, we've talked about this before, it used to be, 2,400 or 2,500 points battle line. Boom. It was always practicing the next tournament. And then at the end of the year, Christmas time, we'd play Triumph and Treachery or Storm of Chaos.
Because the scenarios in 8th edition were crap.
Yeah.
That's why we did battle line.
Sorry.
It was... So...
Yeah,
talking about holes in the system.
But we're practicing from tournament to tournament, trying to get that perfect list. Yep. And now, last year, I think I played 7 different gaming systems I played last year, which was brilliant.
At least.
The Swedish list you don't have to mark. Remember, we used to have a night where we'd come over
Can I let you in on a little secret? I made you guys do that.
Oh,
I never fucking checked any of them.
Didn't you? So we were checking them.
Worst area ever. What? I knew you'd do it for me. Why?
And then we had the
would
South
I do
Coast GT comp. We'd have to sit there.
I came second in that tournament.
That was easy because I did the template for that. People just put it in the template and already did the calculations for it. So, but yeah, I agree with Greg. At least half a dozen different systems last year I played and expanded my board game collection exponentially.
First time I played RPG, Star Wars RPG.
Yeah,
would never have been exposed to that had it with fantasy still been around.
So it's been eye-opening for a lot of other systems, a lot of other stuff out there, and I mean that's one positive we can take from it. I think all of us can sort of say
it's
that.
It's a massive positive. It's great. Now I play an X-Wing with the kids instead of fantasy, and it's a much better.
Are you actually going to get some Drop Fleet games in?
Oh,
maybe.
Mike's hit me up about this. I think he just bought a Scourge set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
very nice to pay to Mike when you hear this post up.
I need your help.
Pictures
Though,
on the...
I'm up to the points costing for a Space Fleet.
I'm not writing your friggin' game for you.
List. I would need some help actually balancing the points and putting it on the board and making sure it's not too out. The rules are fine. I've got the rules are fine.
Yeah. It's King's War in space, isn't it?
Basically, yeah. But who doesn't want to see Star Wars?
Mike could be the perfect.
Yeah, he's already hit me up, but I want to get it at least so it's not completely a wreckage before. But I was going to say the first game I want to do up will be Star Wars Empire versus Necrons. Yeah.
All right, that'd be cool.
And this is a game that my esteemed colleague has invented.
Yeah, I've pretty much just looked up Kings of War. It's so perfect for it.
Where's the innovation, bro? Where's the innovation?
No innovation here. None.
That's it. People
the innovation is I thought of it.
They set fire to their armies when you innovate.
Actually, there you go, Mantic. Bring out a Space Fleet Battles game. There you go.
Ronnie,
Ronnie, get onto it.
Right, have you tweeted him yet?
No.
You meant to tweet him last
How do
week.
you
Fucking
tweet?
hell.
No idea. Don't look at me.
Anyway,
I'll write him a letter.
dear
Old
Ronnie,
school.
Yes.
I'm writing this in my best
Get a
crowns
What
for
the
you.
hell is this?
He'll
I
love
don't even
it.
know how to. Oh, how do you open it?
He'll love it. It's old school. He'll love it.
Yeah, well, that's not as stupid as it sounds.
Yeah. So anyway, where we at?
Where we at? Look, I think we've come full circle, really.
Greg's had a couple of tears. He's barely hanging
It's
on.
been a
here.
good session, boys. How much did they pay you?
Yeah, we're like a shrink. to him.
$150 an hour,
Remember
wasn't
last-
it?
150.
Last week, talking about painting and your missus and whatnot. And now we're getting
Ah.
tears tonight.
Not to mention all the Walking Dead trauma we had to deal
Oh
with.
yes, the Walking Dead trauma. Gosh.
But I think it come full circle. So again, summing up for me, from my point of view, got really deflated when the community disappeared because that's something that we'd worked hard to build. But it's opened my eyes to a lot of other gaming possibilities. So net gain, I think, for me, on balance. I feel like I lost a bit with the community stuff, but I feel like I've grown into other areas and found new things and experienced new stuff, which I guess is a
You're
bonus.
playing lots of other games that
It's
I
fueled
think
my
everyone probably
ADHD.
is, right?
Absolutely. With that
Oh,
stuff.
I think we're at a very exciting time as far as tabletop gaming is concerned.
Any final thoughts, Muddy?
No, mine going back to the death of 8th. Mine was just there's no more army books, no more artwork to feast upon. Apart from that,
What about the
I'm
Tomb
fine.
King? Didn't they get a 9th Age army book or something?
they did. But it's 9th Age. I don't want to be negative about anything, but it just there's too many updates.
It needs to settle. It needs a dust to
I
settle.
like simplicity. I found with Kings that very refreshing that I don't need layers upon layers of rules and special rules just to play a game. I find 9th Age is a lot better than what 8th was in that regard, but with the constant updates, I don't want to sit there reading through PDFs every
Maybe we
month.
need someone that knows 9th Age to come and have a chat
Yeah,
about it.
Jono would be good to do that, but I've had these chats with Jono in that, I'll play with him if if he writes me a list and talks me through it, but when it's constantly updating, I don't have time for that.
I mean, to be honest, you're out of the three of us probably the worst off. No offense, but
Oh, thanks, man.
whenever you're
I'm tearing up over
you
it.
love. I know, here you go. There's the tissues. You're the fluff guy. You love the pretty books and
Yeah.
well, look, we all did, right? But
Yep.
the artwork and all that stuff. Jack and me, we got the Infinity World to dive into, and
You
all
guys
our,
had already moved on.
yeah, which had
During
which
the
got
end times.
outstanding background, and granted, there's not a lot of it, but
Yep.
I think with the RPG coming along, that'll change that. But what
absolutely.
is out there is stellar. There's a good amount of history, and it's just really interesting. So we've got that to go to, and unfortunately, Mantic don't have that for
They
Kings of
don't
War.
have
So
the
you're kind of
storyline. They have a great set of rules that I really enjoy, but they don't have anything for me to do after the game's done. That's the problem. That sums it up perfectly. Really, Warhammer had something to do all the time. There was always something to look at and do.
Aren't you writing your next list? Aren't you tweaking your next list?
No, I'm not. I don't get that into it with lists and whatnot. But yeah, with Warhammer, there was always a new army book coming out. There's some, artwork, etc., etc. Kings is just literally, here's all your armies in one go, and off you go. There's nothing after the game finishes. But I've been branching, I guess, more into historicals and computer games. Actually, I've never been big on computer games. I know, but I'm actually starting to.
Let's have a LAN one night.
I've
What?
LAN?
too.
Didn't you do that when you were a teenager? You drag your computer around to someone else's house and
Back in
hook them all up and play
We're
Quake
too
and
busy playing
shit.
Space Hulk.
Back when I was at Enogra, we used to have it's 3 levels on the lines when I was in the army, and a whole bunch of us used to have computers. We used to run those Ethernet cables.
Blue cords, yeah.
Yep, all out the windows to junction boxes and whatnot. And seriously, you could come back after being on the piss. There'd be people at 2-3 in the morning, all playing it. I can't remember the Command and Conquers and games like that. They'd be up all night playing it, and it'd be just cables all hanging out the back end of the windows. Yeah, good times.
All right, we might call it a wrap there. Greg, you got any final thoughts? Or
No, I think I've said it. Death of 8 I was a very bitter, twisted man. Even though I'd found another game system to put my time and energy in, but still quite bitter. And look, part of this definitely do with my son. As soon as if something hurts, we're all dads here. If somebody or something hurts your blood, then you tend to get a bit excited. But anyway, I've moved on, and I think it's all good. And you know what? We're in, as a gaming, maybe not community, but as gamers, I think we're in a much better spot.
well said. Well said. And for me, I want to put it out there again. Don't let anyone tell you how to play your game. If you want to play 8th, play 8th. If you want to change rules, change rules.
Just go out and break the law. That's what Jacob said.
Yeah, that's it. Hookers and blow. Like that's.
You heard it here first.
Mission statement right there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. It's been a real pleasure. This has been an emotional conversation, but we feel better for it. Make sure you follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter. Download the Podbean app, get the feed from there, iTunes as well. We've got a YouTube channel. We are just, Muddy is all over this, social media manager. Gentlemen, that's it. So good night.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Power Stance Gamers, the #1 place for tabletop banter. You know you love us. See you soon.
It's Eternal and Mix, well on the track once again, killing it. T-Dot to Munch, we all connection, funk resurrection. Ha! Yeah.